You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkradio.com. Click live stream tab or watch us on the live smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. I am Damita Chatman, Take a Stand host for the next hour, where the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group, where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG Network. But last but least, this is the disclaimer. The topics and opinions of the show is the host and the guests and not WCEG Network. Thank you for continuing to support us. Good afternoon, Representative. I see Representative Beverly, Representative Debra Bazemore. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to make this fun. First, I'd like to get the background of Representative Beverly, and that's the leader.
Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm good. And I don't know if we started yet, but I just want to say I just got back from Chicago, and I needed to. I got my car, and Deborah's like, "We got to be on here right now," and I was like,
That's
"Oh
okay.
No!" So I hope it's okay. That
Oh yes, it's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Tell us a little about yourself, Representative Beverly.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing this. It's great to be able to talk a little about session. But before we get to that, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland originally. I came to Atlanta about 20, 25 years ago. I'm actually an optometrist by trade. And then got to open a couple small businesses, realized that that the patients that I was seeing were not being serviced the way that I thought they should be serviced. They were changing the way in which healthcare was being done in the early 2000s. And I decided to run for office and won in 2011. And so over the last 10 years, been at the Capitol. And then this year I was fortunate enough, and some people would say unfortunate enough, to become the leader of the caucus. But it's been good. It's been good.
Okay. Well, we're going to go to State Representative Debra Bazemore, and then we'll come back to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Representative Bazemore.
Well, good afternoon to my leader and my friend, Damita Chatman, and thank you for inviting us on your show. So I'm State Representative Debra Bazemore, and I represent District 63, which encompasses a portion of Fulton, Fayette, and Clayton County. And originally a New Yorker, moved down here in 2005, got involved in the community, helped to create the city of South Fulton, moved into working with one of the state senators for 2.5 years. And then the Lord said, "It's your turn." So
All
then
right. All right. Thank you. I see Representative Billy Mitchell's on. Tell us a little about yourself, Representative Mitchell. Unmute.
First of all, it's good to be with you all. And I must tell you, Ms. Damita Chatman, you've got some stalwart legislators here in Leader James Beverly and Chief Deputy Whip Debra Bazemore. My claim to fame is I just happen to know them and be in their company. Folk think I'm somebody as a result of that. So I'm glad to be with you and to be amongst them once again. And I do consider this a privilege. I must say that I perhaps have been involved in some form of public service or advocating for some candidate probably since the time I could walk. I could remember my mother. I was born in Savannah, but raised in New Jersey, of all places. And I remember my mother was the first woman chief of a law enforcement department, chief of the department. And I remember holding up signs for some candidate ever since. Came to Georgia to attend law school, been here ever since. I was on my local city council in the city of Stone Mountain. From there, I ran for the legislature where I have been serving since 2003.
Wow. Wow, wow. Thank you. Okay, I want to, and we can start with the leader. Just tell me, what do you guys do? Because some people is confused. So just tell me where you, what do you do? What's the Black Caucus Foundation?
Yeah, so there's two different three different caucuses up at the state. So you have the Senate, which have their caucus, and those are all of the members, whether you're Black, white, Asian, whatever. So they have their caucus. That's in the Senate. The House has our caucus, and that's, it's not just exclusively for Black folk. It's everyone around the state of Georgia that's a Democrat that represents the state House. And then you have the Legislative Black Caucus, which is obviously made up of African Americans, and then those people who are affiliate, who may not be African American, but want to be a part of that organization. So the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus is not what I lead. I lead actually the whole caucus in the House. So everybody who's a Democrat is what I lead, and Billy is the chair, and obviously State Representative Debra Bazemore is the chief deputy whip. And so in that space, then what we do is we set the policy agenda for what we particularly believe, what is the Democratic agenda for the state of Georgia. And we fight for that. And so it's not necessarily located for just Black issues, it's issues across the spectrum. And then how do we do that in a way in which we give voice to those people who we believe are voiceless at the state capitol? And then we are a minority that fights against what we believe is bad legislation like 202. We don't have the numbers yet, but we'll get those in the next couple of years. Y'all just stay tuned. But for now, what we're doing is we're advancing the agenda of what we believe that Democrats across the state would want and what other people would embrace. And then beyond that is to fight with the bad stuff Republicans are doing. Whereas the Black Caucus will focus strictly on, or mostly on, African-American issues as it relates to the state of Georgia.
Okay, great. We got a question from Facebook, and it says, will the leadership of Georgia House Democrat Caucus get behind and support Representative Kim Schofield and the Accountability and Corrections Act? And I'm gonna let all y'all chime in. I chime in with Representative Mitchell first on that.
Representative Schofield is a dedicated and public official, and certainly a very active and dedicated member of our caucus. And I can tell you, not that I'm a mind reader, but I can tell you what my colleagues are going to say here. They most certainly will support Representative Schofield in this action. It is a great legislation, and that is what we do. We try to come up with ways and support positions and advocate for actions that would be good for the constituents we serve. And we quite frankly think they serve Georgia at a better rate. That question probably came from Representative Schofield.
No, it didn't. Matter of fact, you know what? It did. It come from someone off Facebook, and it come from someone that didn't look like us. So it's a long email, and I thought it was kind of a good one. So what do you think?
Absolutely.
Yes. Representative Bazemore?
I think that was an excellent question. And I'm excited that we do have people that understand what we do and they know something about the bills that we are presenting. Despite the fact that we have not been allowed, this session was one of the worst sessions that I have ever been involved in, that we have been stifled and we were not allowed to speak at the well most times. We were not allowed to get our bills heard at hearings. We were just handcuffed, and it was very disheartening because we are there and we've been elected to represent our constituents, and all of us have a similar amount, almost the same amount of constituents. And so when you don't allow us to be the voice for our people, then they lose. And so we are not, however, going to stop fighting. We are going to come back in session and we are going to continue the fight. We're going to continue to introduce those important bills that affect our communities and our constituents.
Okay, thank you. Representative Beverly, you want to chime into that?
Yeah, I think my colleagues answered it. I thought that was a message from Kim Schofield to let us know she was listening. But no, absolutely. Kim Schofield is a dear friend of all of ours. We'll support everything she does. We are 100% behind her for sure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, this is another question, and we're gonna take Representative Bazemore, and then we can go and say it. What is it like working with legislative control by the party of Trump?
So that's an excellent question. And that is something that I alluded to just now. It was very, very difficult for us to allow our voice to be heard for our constituents. However, we had to get creative. And so what we started doing was we started going to the media and having press conferences.
Wow.
We started to have press releases to let people know that this is what we're proposing, this is what we said, because we're not being allowed to say anything. And because the lie has been perpetuated, some people believe it still, even in the House, which very, like I said, it's very concerning to us. But like I said, we're not going to stop. Every time they show their hand, we will then change and do something different to make sure we are heard.
Thank you. Representative Mitchell?
I will tell you, I'm getting very concerned about the status of our democracy. I believe one of the founders of our form of government said it best, that our democracy is one that is fragile. And if we don't be cautious and defend it, someone with an interesting personality could come and commandeer our form of government. And I think that's what we're seeing now. I've just completed my 19th year in the legislature.
Wow.
And I have never, ever seen it as contentious as it was this past session.
Wow.
We've always had disagreement, and I think disagreement is good. I always say where you stand on issues is based on where you sit. They represent different constituencies, so I can understand them having a different perspective. But this session, it was almost like your humanity was being challenged.
Wow.
And, it was a very difficult session, and it's following what seems to be going on all over this nation. The insurrection on the Capitol, virtually every conservative state is putting in laws that make it difficult for some people to vote. And I think that if we don't get a handle on this, we've got people that are asserting that there was massive fraud in elections when they know there was no fraud. There was, no fraud to certainly overturn an election. And as long as, we have that sensible, even conservatives, when they speak up against that, against the Trump mandate of conducting elections, they are even criticized. So we're in troubling times, and I just hope that we can turn it around before it just really, put an end to the form of democracy that we now have.
And I know the leader got a plan. So, leader, Representative Beverly, what's the plan to take control of that?
Yeah, so one of the things that is what is interesting is that we could have picked up 17 seats the last time, and we missed it by 14 seats. And people are like, oh well, we got a Democrat, 2 Democratic senators, Biden won Georgia. Why didn't the House flip? Well, that's because of the way in which they drew the map. And if you look at those 17 seats we're going to pick up, we actually lost those seats by less than 20,000 votes. So over the course of 17 seats, it was less than 20,000 votes. And the reason we didn't get those is because the way in which a map is drawn, certain precincts are cut, split, so that gives them a competitive advantage. Well, this year, what we have is we have the census data that came out for apportionment, right? We do new congressional maps. But in a couple months, we'll get numbers that will help us to redo districts across the state of Georgia. And so you'll get these new house maps. And what we believe is that communities of interest have changed in the last 10 years. And so we're going to lean into that space to make sure that communities of interest get the right representation. I think that's going to start the movement. The second piece is over the next couple of years, and if they don't do it, then we're going to sue them. We're going to go to court and make sure that the communities of interest are represented. So we're on the horizon to do that. We're ready for that. We're going to take it to them and take the fight to them. But beyond that, here's the thing that I have a bunch of hope around. And it's a simple thing, is that Republicans are reacting to everything that's in the news and they're not planning for the future. And whenever you have reactionary politics, you lose. You can't sustain it because you're always at the whim of whatever the thing of the day, right? The soup du jour, right? Soup du jour always has you lose politics. And we have a plan to talk about healthy Georgia, around healthcare, education, this apportionment thing, and civil liberties. And we've planned that, and we're going to get there. So I'm excited about Republicans being a reactionary species right now. They're eating themselves alive, and we'll take advantage of them. I can't wait to flip this house so we can have sensible legislation that's going to come and make Georgians proud that they're in Georgia, that you come on here. I think our biggest problem going to be we don't have too many people in Georgia because it's going to be the only state to be in.
All right. Let me ask you, you said something, so let me just go on and that. Getting the new people down under the dome, how has that helped the party? And are they coming in working with you guys, or are they coming in just, I'm new and I'm gonna do what I want? Because when you get those attitudes and together, the new and the new always try to outdo the old. So how are you guys working together? Because the new people, when you get the new people down into dome.
Yeah, so I'll take a stab at that, then I'll turn it over to the chair and the chief. The one thing you got to do is you got to give people an opportunity to kind of get, sort of get their sea legs down to Capitol. You give them a little space to, right? Sooner or later, that pendulum swings back. You realize you're a part of a bigger system that will absolutely move forward with or without you. And once you really understand that it's not about you, it's about the people you represent, then things start to click a little bit more. It's like, oh, I need to make alliances with folk who have a same political bent that I have so that we can move together, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And I think that what happens with new legislators is they start realizing at a certain point is I got to stick together in order if we're going to go far. And I think that we set the standard this year. I think Billy can tell you this, the chair can tell you this. It's the first time in, I don't know, a couple decades, Billy, that every single member in the House paid their dues. That's a big deal, right? And so every person that was in our leadership space paid. If they didn't pay all of it, they paid some of it, but everybody participated, which bodes well for the future. And so I'm excited. I couldn't be more excited to be a leader at this time with the greatest chair ever. I was the chair before Billy, and then I became the leader. So he's the second greatest chair that's ever been in the state of Georgia. And I'll turn it over to him.
Okay, well, Representative Mitchell, he said dues. I want to know, how much is them dues? How much y'all have to pay?
Well, I will tell you, Ms. Damita, my dues is, I believe it's $4,000. Am I right about that?
Oh, wow.
It's 5,000. It's 5,000.
Okay.
I'm thinking I'm going to get me a personal loan from them. I believe the leader even pays even more than that.
Oh, wow.
And he's absolutely right. The fact of the matter is, ever since I've been there, we've never, ever had every single member buy into what the caucus was doing. And as you all know, on this show here, and as a matter of fact, I think it's scriptural, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And we've had single member invest some of their treasure into what we're doing. And to your point, I remember when I was running for the legislature, I told everyone the air was going to be fresher, the grass was going to be greener, the water was going to be better if you just elected me. And as the leader just pointed out, quickly recognized that I could not get anything done unless I developed a coalition of like-minded legislators that were going to at least support some of my efforts. And, You know, we have some legislators that that claim to fame is to be advocates. We have I find that the better legislators are those who can build coalitions and can build cooperation and like-mindedness about the purposes.
Okay, Representative Bazemore?
So I have to agree with both my colleagues and excellent men in leadership. And I've learned being in leadership also that you do have to allow people some space, try to educate them on the processes. Because I remember when we had those 17 came in, and as I was having a discussion with one of them, she started to apologize. She said, "I am so, so sorry." She said, "When I was on the outside and I was an advocate and I was fighting, I always said, these people are not doing anything. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to show them this is ridiculous." When she got in, she realized at that point that it's so much more to trying to get things done. And as it was said, I mean, they laid it out for you, how we have to maneuver down there. And then she said she went back to those people that she talked to about us, and she apologized to them also.
Wow.
And tried to explain. I think it's all about education, because some people believe they know what we do and how we do it until they're in the thick of it. And then they
Okay.
realize it's nothing that I thought it was.
I totally agree. This was another question that somebody sent to me, and we'll start with Debra, Representative Debra Bazemore. Do you believe that some Democrats voted with Republicans when it came to local bills regarding the elections? And I'm gonna give you an example. Morgan County State, that was Democrats that voted for Republicans to remove them. And I've been talking on my other show about Miss Helen Butler, that they're trying to move and appoint a Republican down there. So how do you feel? How you guys feel about that policy?
So it's concerning. I think you're talking about the election boards.
Yes.
Okay. So it's concerning because we, as it was stated earlier, we are in the minority, and every seat that you give up cost us, and it costs our constituents. We need representation at the highest level and the highest numbers everywhere, so that we can adequately represent and fairly represent. So the reasoning, I'm not sure what the reasoning was, but I do believe that it's like a family. You can talk amongst yourself and reason together and iron out whatever it is, but let's not take it outside and make it a bigger problem, because then it spills over into everybody's house and creates a major problem that we may not be able to come back from.
I agree. What about Representative Mitchell? What you think about that?
It highlights a particular problem that we are finding ourselves in more and more, particularly this last session, whereas we have the principle called local legislation. Essentially, it follows a principle of home rule, in that the local legislators get to decide what is best for the communities that they serve. It's unfair to have a legislator, let's say from Savannah, working on an issue in DeKalb County or city of Atlanta, where the voters can't hold that person responsible. And what we're finding is more and more in our legislature, where the overall General Assembly is making decisions that will affect only local communities, where the voters have absolutely no say as to whether that legislator should serve or not. The local legislative process used to be one that was sacrosanct. You would not cross that line. but it is becoming more blurred by the session. And the leader's absolutely correct. We need to take over the legislature so that we can preserve that system of government for sure.
Thank you. The leader Beverly, what you think about that?
Yeah, I think that both my colleagues answered it. One of the things that's a little known secret is what happens with the local calendar when you're voting is they will take and put a bill from Macon, Georgia, from Atlanta, from a different county, and they're all on one schedule. And you have to vote it as a block. You can't vote, you can't pull it off. You can, but then it creates some other problems, right? So you have different local legislations on one calendar, and then you vote on that one calendar as a block. So for instance, if I'm in Macon, Georgia, which is where I represent, and I have something that my local delegation needs me to get done, right? They can put my legislation on a calendar where in Monroe County, they may want to get rid of their elections board. So what do? Do I vote for my district and then I get rid of the elections board on the same calendar? Or do I abstain from the vote? And those are the kind of tricks they play. They will put your bill on another bill that's a bad one, and then you have to vote on it as a slate. So when people say, why did Democrats vote against this or for this? A lot of times because you may have your local bill, right, on a calendar where a bad bill is on, and you have to vote on it as a block. And that's where the games get played, and that's where the sausage is made, and that's where we try to help our members, especially young members, to understand the impact of what you do right now is going to have a lasting impact over the next 5-10 years. And that's where most of the work comes for what we do in leadership, is trying to help people navigate this space, then let the public know, no, we didn't vote against George, we voted for ours. It's just the games that they're playing, which is why, as the chair said, we absolutely positively have to flip this state in the next couple of years.
And you know what? Thank you for clearing that up, because I thought that. So now I understand the process. And I think when people get understanding, I think in the information, I think they understand it. You cleared that up, because that was one of my questions. Why did they vote on that bill? So I understand now they put it in the block. Okay, let's talk. What are the provisions of Senate Bill 202 that got the Secretary of State's office unconstitutional based upon the state's constitution? I'm gonna go with the leader first with that one.
So as it relates to 202, what happened was the Republicans who recognized, and this is again a part of the dirtiness and the games that they play, is that the state is changing. And so the Secretary of State has some powers, right? A lot of powers about elections boards, how things are done, recounts, and so forth. Well, Republicans in this moment said, we're going to take all the power from the Secretary of State as it relates to elections boards, how you do a recount, and we're going to put it in the hands of the representatives, period. And not only are we going to put it in the hands of the representatives who are in power, we're going to compel you to use your money to do what we tell you to do. And that's what 202 just did. And so instead of having a Secretary of State who potentially next year could be a Democrat, right, because of the way in which the state is changing, the House may not flip next year. So what happens if you have a Democratic Secretary of State, which is probable for next year, and a House that's controlled by Republicans, they can compel a Democratic Secretary of State to do what they want them to do as far as elections are concerned, as far as money is being spent, and there's no recourse that you have, which means it has to go to court. And that's part of the dirtiness of 202, amongst other things. And our colleagues, the chair and the chief, can talk about some other things, but that's what happened with the Secretary of State. It's actually unbelievable. Now, Ms. Chatman and my colleagues, I got to jump. Y'all know I'm in my car. I'm headed back home. I had to park for a minute, but if you don't mind, I'm going to bounce off of this call. I'm going to leave you in the greatest hands of all time. That's the chief, followed by the chair. And I appreciate your time, and whatever I can do to help you, I will.
Thank you, Representative. I know you just got back in town, but thank you for getting on. And I'm quite sure Representative Mitchell and Representative Bazemore can handle the next questions that we get. Thank you so much. You be
Very
safe
good.
out there. We look forward to working with you in the next session.
This is a treat for sure, Ms. Chatman. Normally the leader has a driver. I don't know if you noticed that. That's a Bentley he's in, and he normally has a driver. So this is a real treat to see him driving himself.
It's
See
a,
y'all.
it's a blessing to be driving a Billy. I remember we used to drive in a Pinto, so God is good.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
God
y'all
is good.
terrible. I'll
God
see
is
y'all
Thank
good.
you.
later.
Yeah,
All
y'all,
right, bye-bye.
you be
Bye.
safe out there. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Representative Mitchell, what do you think about that Senate Bill 202?
Well, it is a part of the contentiousness that we had here, which was brought on by nothing else than the fact that Democrats came out and voted in such a way that they felt that they needed to do something to contain and curtail our percentage at the polls. And that's all this is really about. To expound on what the leader said, not that this would ever happen, but if, let's say, a president were to call up the Secretary of State in our state and say, could you change the outcome of the elections or find me 11,000 votes? The way they have restructured things, that can be done now. Wait a minute, that did happen. That absolutely did happen. And we had a Secretary of State that actually had to be mindful of the voters. Now there's someone in that position who could make those decisions, which is going to be a political appointee. Does not have to worry about the will of the majority of the voters. Very dangerous. I want to tell you something else. You know, we talk about ID, and the ID provisions on this bill I think are terrible. But I believe that they're even more terrible for rural voters. Copying your ID, sending in your personal information that may not be as draconian to metro areas, but in rural areas that would be something difficult. But even the notion of we talk. I hear my opponents talk about often giving water in line and so forth, but the law says anything of value. You can't bring a chair, you can't bring an umbrella, only food, anything of value. I proposed this, I was on a panel not too long ago, and I had a Republican that said, this is not going to be so bad. And I pointed out to them that let's assume that you go to the election board with your spouse, or your spice, whatever you have, and you say, and they say to you, "Here, would you like a piece of gum?" Do you know that that person would then be subject to arrest and up to a year in prison? And when I explained that to the person, even the Republican had to admit that that is terrible law, and that is the position that we now find ourselves.
Wow. And that you brought up a good question. An answer. So if I go to standing and posing, you know how majority of our in the Black area, we just have to call it like it is. In the white areas, lines is typically moving. You get into the minority where sometimes they have to stand in line 3 or 4 hours and it pour down raining. You tell me if I bring my umbrella and give somebody my umbrella not to get soaked, then that I'm subject to a felony.
You're subject to arrest and up to a year in jail.
Wow. I think the Republicans need their tail whoop. I'm gonna leave it like that, because that's just disgusting. What about you, Representative Bazemore? What you think about that?
My colleague really spoke to the issue appropriately and expressed our disgust and disdain for this bill. I talked about earlier trying to tie our hands. I look at this bill as the Republicans having their knee on our neck.
Wow.
That's how I look at it. They want us to go away. They want us to stop voting, despite the fact that this method was good for them for a decade. They used it for decades, never thought to change anything in the law until we found out that we could be successful and victorious by doing the same thing. So now there's a problem.
Wow.
It's a takeover.
Yes.
Take over our state election boards, as you pointed to earlier, take over Secretary of State's office. And as our leader said, I mean, he has to give up, he or she will have to give up their resources, even their staff, everything, if they're asked, and they have no power. The bill is so ridiculous. And they feel as though, well, this is going to affect some of our constituents, but not as many as it will affect in the Black and Brown communities.
Yeah.
So it's worth doing. And that's why they did it.
Yeah. Do the Democrats have a plan, and you don't have to go into that plan, but look like we need to have a serious plan? We need to get together. Democrat shouldn't be over there. That's my take. Representative shouldn't be on third base thinking one thing, Representative Mitchell on second base thinking. I think this is a time that we all need to get on one accord, get a strategy, and let them know that we mean business. What do you think about that? And then also, I'm not from Georgia, and I hear a lot of people always talk about Maynard Jackson and how Maynard Jackson and Hosea Williams, they had a slate, and they came together, and everybody agreed on that. But what I'm looking at now, and I'm not saying anybody can run, but when you have 4 or 5 Democrats that's running for the Secretary of State seat, that really is going to divide the votes up. Have you guys sat down with these folks yet and said, look, we all need to be on one accord? Because what I see now is, if we don't get on one accord, we might have some problems. And one thing about what I saw in the Trump days, I don't care how much they talk about each other. I don't care how much he talked about their mama, their kids. But when they came out, they were on one accord, and they didn't care what if Trump called him a sucker, they still stuck by Trump. So what are you guys doing to basically do the same thing?
So I'm going to jump in. I'm glad you asked that question, because we in leadership have had that discussion. We have identified those individuals that have expressed their desire to run for other offices, especially the state wide offices. And we are also asking, so who would be your predecessor? So we coming together, we have a strategy. Even with this bill, we met every Wednesday during the session with ACLU and Fair Fight and some of the other organizations, and sat down, and we were strategic about the questions that needed to be asked on the committee, so that when we do go to court, then we had that information that was needed to fight this bill. One thing I can tell you, and I've been saying this often, is that one good thing that came out of this pandemic is that we all have come together because we had to. Yeah. We were forced to come together on Zoom calls and everything. And our attendance, you can ask the chair, our attendance in the caucus and everywhere has been at its highest because of this, because we don't have to travel. So what it has given us is that nobody is really working in silos anymore. We are working together. We are strategizing. Everybody's voice is being heard. So when your voice is being heard, you are more likely to stay in the game and help out. And so that's what's happening. And I know that my colleague and chair, he is on top of it. I'm gonna tell you right now, working with the leader on a regular basis. People think that once we get out of session, it's done. We work all year round and we don't stop.
Okay, good. Representative, thank you. Representative Mitchell, what you think about that?
Yeah, well, no question about it. I tell you, that's one of the challenges that we have. And I will say that we have so much talent in our caucus. We have folk who do some extraordinary things, have some extraordinary backgrounds. And we as Democrats, it's obvious that we have amazing opportunities coming up in the next election cycle. I believe that we will take many, if not all, of the statewide offices because of our talent and because of the way that the Republicans have carried themselves. We'd love, as one of the jobs that I have is to try to make certain that our members return and we gain some more. And I would love for those loyalties not to be split. I had two candidates in my office before we left session. They both were interested in running for lieutenant governor. And I brought them in and I sat them down. I talked to them for about 10, 15 minutes. And then I closed my door and left and say, I'm leaving you two in here. I came back an hour later. My admin told me they had just left. I called them both and they told me we could not resolve it. They still both were going to run. And so, when you've got talented people who see opportunities and see that and believe that they can serve and serve well, and I believe all our candidates can serve and serve well, the dilemmas that we have. And I just hope that at the end of the day, we can come together and get it together. But Mr. Damita, you are so right. I've seen the former president call members of his party liars and weak and little Marcos and lying. I mean, it was incredible. I had never seen anything like that. And today, those same people who he criticized, they're his biggest cheerleaders.
Yes.
That is a lesson that we do have to learn. I will tell you, there's some Democrats, I tell you, you vote against their bill or you disagree with them on one thing and they're done with you forever. and we have to learn to overcome those kinds of issues.
Absolutely. Because and you just said something, and I'm going to put it out there. I know when Stacey Abrams was running last time for governor, you heard Democrats say they didn't want to vote for her because she worked with, I think, Governor Deal. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to get over that, and we have to just put our pettiness aside, because right now we're in some tough times. And so I'm looking for you guys to get some more Democrats down there to work alongside with you. But this is the question that I'm finna ask you guys. How do you feel about this independent thing? Oh, I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent. I'm gonna use Vernon Jones as an example. Vernon Jones was a Democrat, used the Democrats, but then when he couldn't do what he do, he went to Republicans. How y'all feel about that? Because I was told what's in a man gonna come out. So that wasn't just an overnight thing. That been laying dormant in him a long time. So how do y'all Democrats feel about that?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, Chair. He thinking about, oh Lord. You feel about that?
I must say that when Vernon Jones was CEO of DeKalb County, he did some extraordinary things. At the time that I was getting involved politically, and he was a state legislator moving on to be the CEO of the county, DeKalb County was emerging from a more rural suburban to the county it is now. And as a matter of fact, they didn't even, not only did they not want certain people in the community, they didn't even want you walking around. MARTA could not go in certain areas. There weren't even sidewalks in certain communities in DeKalb County. When Vernon came along, he mandated that there's sidewalks everywhere. MARTA is everywhere. One of the reasons Vernon got in trouble as CEO was that the county became a majority African-American county, but every time the leadership brought in someone for one of the high-paying jobs, it would be someone who wasn't African-American. Wow. Vernon got up publicly in the meeting and said, don't bring me anyone more unless you have some African Americans in here. Now, he could have handled that differently. And someone filed a grievance against him as a result of that. But I said all that to say that was the kind of leader that he was. As of late, I can't understand why he has this predilection to be a Republican and go to that party and say some of the things that he is. I can't read his mind. I just know what he has done and compared that to some of the things that he's done as of late. Certainly, I disagree with him, but I think God will work it out at the end.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I ain't gonna even waste time on that no more. Tell me, let me ask you, how do you get bills in your community that need the environment in this environment?
Restate that.
Okay, this was a question somebody sent me. How do you get a bill in your community needs in this environment? That's how they send it. I'm just reading how they send it.
Okay.
Representative Bazemore.
Okay. So a lot of times the way we have bills crafted through our legislative council, which is a team of lawyers that are we have access to, it's because our constituents will come to us with an issue or a problem, and they want us to address it. And a lot of times we will review it, ask them to write something on, we'll review it, and then we'll forward it on to legislative council. And that person that specifically deals with that area, that's their area of expertise, they will get that, and then they will review it. And I've had bills sometimes that I thought were really good ideas. And then if there is an issue based on the codes already in law and any challenges that you might have, they will then send a cover letter, and they will advise you, this is what it is, this is what could happen, along with their verbiage on that bill. So then at that time, you have to make a decision. Is it worth allowing this bill to go forward, or to then go back to the constituents, or to even tweak it? But a lot of times that is where we get ideas, and because it concerns about constituents, and they let us know, and we go ahead and consult our legislative council.
Okay, Representative Mitchell.
Mr. I'm so glad you asked this question. I say often when I go in front of community groups is that you get the kind of representation that you deserve. Those who are informed and engaged and listen and watch programs like this, quite frankly, they get a better government than those who are uninformed, unengaged, and uninvolved. The first thing they have to do is make sure that they are informed and engaged and involved. Every now and then, I'm sure that you hear this. I know my colleague does. You may hear someone say, that representative my elected official doesn't do anything. I never hear from them until it's election time, and those kinds of things. That's more a testament on the person themselves than it is the elected official. I don't know any elected official that when someone who can vote for them calls them with a need or an issue, that they ignore it. You've got to get involved and get engaged. I say this often. Someone comes to me and they say, how come that community over there, my area is the northern part of the county, seems to get everything that they want, but this community over here seems to go lacking. Now, I can give you all kinds of sociological theories and why that is, but the real reason is the people who are well served are informed and engaged and involved, and they vote. And the people who are not well served are uninformed, unengaged, and they don't vote. If we could miraculously pick up everybody from the well-served community, and put them in the underserved community, everyone in the underserved community, well-served community, guess what would happen virtually overnight? The services would flip simply because the people who are used to being well-served and being engaged and informed will continue to do so. And the folks that are used to not being informed and engaged and involved will continue to do so. Our folks, they say things like, oh, I never hear from my legislator. Where the well-served people say, when I call my legislator, they respond. And that's what it is. It's not a spectator type of sport. It is one that you have to participate in to get the kind of government that you want. You see it, something that needs to be changed, you call your legislator to get it changed. And that's how the process is supposed to work.
And I totally agree with you, because I can pick up the phone and call all of my representatives and get them. So you got to get involved. The saying is that I heard in all you're getting, get understanding. That's what we need to do. Okay, we're gonna be wrapping up, but this is a question that I want you guys to answer. What good bills were passed by Republican controlled Senate government? Representative Mitchell.
Well, there's some good things that were passed. I will say the bill that did away with citizens' arrest was probably one of the better bills that were passed. But let me just say this as well. Every bill that is proposed and we vote on has to have some interaction with us Democrats. We give our opinion and we change here and we debate on those things. So just because it was sponsored by a Republican does not mean it did not have the influence of those of us here. But I think citizens arrest, this notion that somebody can come and arrest you, as was done with Ahmaud Arbery, because of what belief system that they have, which could wind up in just tragic circumstances, is just absolutely terrible. I'll tell you another bill that, as a matter of fact, that bill, the citizens arrest bill, is actually going to be signed into law at 3 p.m. today by the governor.
I was just gonna ask you about that. Them bills that today, if he don't sign them into law, they're gonna go into law, right?
That is correct. Anything he does not sign or veto automatically goes into law.
All right. Well, I got a bill that I'm gonna be looking for. I'm ready to get my champagne, if you know what I'm talking about, Representative Bazemore.
You do, and I'm going to be just as happy. So I got a message while we were on, and it looks as though it looks good. I'll say that, because we can't talk yet until we see the signature on the paper.
All right. All right.
So I'm excited. But one thing I did want to highlight too is that you made reference to something with Stacey Abrams and how people, were upset. I want people to really understand, as my colleague said, you have to know what's going on. Sometimes it appears one way, but you don't know what the ramifications would have been, or you don't know what went into working together with Republicans. So a lot of times, just ask the question, just find out, because what happens is when you start to talk and then everybody else gets on board and starts to talk, and then it's out there, but it's not accurate.
Accurate.
And
Absolutely.
it's about a lot of things. So we are here for you. We need to represent you, but we need your help too. So Amen. Just give us a call. And like Ms. Chatman said, she can call me anytime of the day. I am not her state representative, but I was the chair of the City of South Fulton delegation and now the vice chair, but I take all calls.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Let me ask you, at close, we got about 5 minutes. Are there any Georgia hate crime bills being put into place to protect the Black community? Mm-hmm. We can go with Representative Mitchell on that.
We had a substantial hate crimes legislation, or it's now law, that we passed last year. As a matter of fact, we were one of only 2 states in the nation that did not have hate crimes law on the books. Now, there's just one other state, and I understand that they're debating it as we speak. So there's hate crimes. Now, I will tell you that I believe that the hate crimes legislation does not go far enough, and that's going to be a task for Democrats in coming years. But we do have it on the books now to where there's increased penalties if it can be determined that hate motivated your crime.
That's right. And I believe that I heard that those in the Ahmaud Arbery case are being charged because of that bill also at a federal level for hate.
Wow. Well, we gonna wrap it up. Let me tell you, I really enjoyed today just listening to you guys. I'm gonna get the Senate caucus in next to talk about, because it's a difference. It's leadership and one deal. What you guys deal with? Mitchell, what do you?
The whole caucus, all the bills, all of the Democrats. Go ahead, Mr. Chair, because he's excellent.
No, I just say we in order for a proposal to become law, not only must it be deliberated upon by the Democrats in the House, but also in the Senate. So we work in concert together to make sure that we represent all of Georgia.
Great. So like I said, we're going to be getting the Senate in. We're going to take off a few months and then we're going to get them in and hear from them. I'm looking for great things coming out of you guys. I think we all need to just get on one accord. We can make this thing happen if we stay focused. I'm going to be talking to you guys later off the air about different things that I see. But I think if we get that slate, that's very important. And we just go down that slate and get the people. We can take control. I want to thank you guys for coming out. I want to thank you for just giving us, great information. And I believe that we're gonna turn. What people don't understand, Georgia is blue. They say Georgia's blue, but Georgia's not blue until we take the Secretary of State. We take all them Republican seats. That's when we can be blue. So I know the world is watching us, so we can do it. We just can't let up. And let them know that we mean business. And it's going to be on YouTube, and you guys can use it. I want to thank you guys so much for just giving us that important information. I know them bills going to be signed, or they go into law tomorrow. So I'm going to have my hands crossed, my legs and everything crossed, and then at the stroke of midnight, I'm going to thank God for victory. And Representative Bazemore, she know what I'm talking about. So I thank God we're gonna be victorious.
Yes.
Again, I want to thank you guys for coming out and just sharing information. We're gonna be getting back with you again. And again, that slate is very important because without that, it's impossible. Do you guys have any closing remarks? Mitchell?
Yeah. Just once again, it was a privilege to be on your program. I'm so glad that you invited me. If anyone has a question they'd like to get to me directly, my email address is billy.mitchell@house.ga.gov, G-O-V. It's B as in Bravo, ILLY.MITCHELL. And like Representative Bazemore, if you contact me, I will contact you back.
Are you on social media?
I am. I'm on all social media platforms, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, just Representative Billy Mitchell.
Okay.
Representative. I'm going to put this up on Facebook as soon as I'm done.
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Bazemore.
So first and foremost, thank you so very much for having us. And Ms. Chatman, we're friends. We go back a long ways working on the city of South Fulton. But I so appreciate you. I appreciate what you do for the community and how you keep people informed. And that's important, as my colleague says. People have to be informed and stay engaged. And so you make that possible. So I appreciate it. And you deserve those 2 months off. We'll be looking for you when you come back. So just wanted everybody to know that, yes, If you need to contact me, my email address is Debra, 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 not Deborah, .Bazemore, BAZEMORE @house.ga.gov. And my office number is 404-656-0202. And my administrative assistant is excellent. She will definitely let me know if I have any concerns come in from you. And I'm on all social media, as my colleague said, and I am going to post this also. So thank you again.
Again, thank you guys, and you guys have a blessed and safe day. We look forward to working with you in the near future. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care now.